Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Dads Speak, a show where real dads, share their stories about being present in their child's lives with the goal of raising responsible adults. I'm your host, Sarah McClure, and my guest today is Detective Lieutenant Ed Price, also known as Cuba. Cuba and I met in 2001 when we both worked at the FBI's Violent Crime Task Force. I was a sergeant at the Detroit Police Department, and he worked as a trooper, but later got promoted to sergeant at Michigan State Police. Cuba is happily married and the proud dad of three children and three grandchildren. He is currently an assistant commander in the Michigan State Police, and he'll tell us more about his title later. He has handled several high profile cases and was assigned to the FBI's Human Trafficking Unit, which was one of the first 10 units in the country. Today, I'm going to talk to Cuba about being a dad and working a human trafficking unit, and if there's anything parents can do to help their children from becoming a victim. So, welcome, Cuba. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you for coming on. So, how'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up on the west side of Detroit, over
Okay.
by like the 96 Schaefer area. Went to high school right outside the city and got into the Michigan State Police when I just turned 22 years old.
Oh, baby. Okay. You have any siblings?
Yes, I have three um, half siblings and two step siblings.
Okay.
I
Are
come from
any
a
of them
mixed
in law
family.
enforcement?
No.
Okay. All right. How'd you end up going to law enforcement?
Well, long story short, my junior year in high school, I interviewed a recruiter for the Michigan State Police. And based off of that interview with that recruiter, I decided I wanted to be a Michigan State trooper. So I went to college here locally at Wayne State. And then when I became of age, I took the test and became a trooper at 22.
What did you want to be when you were growing up? Did you want to be police?
As a kid, you think about, what you want to do. You want to be the police, catch the bad guys. So that was one thought, or business was my other thought.
What kind of business? You just want to be your own, own your own business?
On my business administrator, I didn't really have a true thought at that point. I was actually, when I decided to become a state trooper that junior year in high school, I was actually in a business class. Um, and that sort of changed my mind.
Okay. All right. So let's get back to this career that you have. What is your title and what are you responsible for
So
as a
my
commanding officer?
my title is detective lieutenant. So I am the assistant section commander for the second district special investigation section for the state police. So we cover Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. So I supervise detective sergeants who investigate police shootings, public corruption, human trafficking. We do homicide cases. You name it, we do it.
Okay. Now, when you were at the FBI Human Trafficking Unit, how long were you there?
I was there for over 10 years as part of task force here locally, which was Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. We did have cases that extended into other states and other parts of the country as well.
Okay. So, what is human trafficking? Is it another word for being pimped, or is it always about selling sex?
So, nope, there's two different forms of human trafficking. You have your sex trafficking, which is going to be that commercial sex act where someone is profiting from it. Either that victim is a minor or they're using force, fraud, or coercion for that. And then the second side to human trafficking is your labor trafficking. So someone is being, say, forced to work in the fields, or it could be another business, or it could be a servant at a house. So there's different avenues for that. A lot of people think human trafficking is that sex trafficking part because that's easy to identify with the internet or girls or people out on street corners and different things like that. And those victims are, of course, easier to find, where some of your victims in the labor trafficking part aren't self identifying.
Okay. Now with the labor, because I mean, is it usually a certain income that could have that type of labor? Is it
Well,
like I
yeah,
mean,
it depends. Like anything else, it could be force involved, it could be threats involved, or it could be unfair wages. So there's a lot of different elements to the labor trafficking part, and that's one of the issues why sometimes that's harder for law enforcement to find, identify, and bring prosecution to some of those cases.
okay. All right. So, who are the victims of human trafficking? Are the victims always like kidnapped and threatened, or are they tricked by people using social media like catfishing?
Okay, so you just asked about 8 to 10 different questions in one. So the victims can be anyone from minor victims, juveniles, boys, girls, women, men. A lot of times for the trafficking part, those a lot of victims can be hooked on opioids. That's like the big thing right now is that these exploiters are getting these girls, and I'll say girls a lot or women a lot, but boys do get involved, and boys are victims in this as well. But they will keep them hooked on drugs to control them. So they might have to go sleep with so many people or so many customers in terms of getting that fix or that heroin or that drug because they don't want to be dope sick. Because a lot of victims that I've interviewed will let you know that being dope sick almost feels like death. What it does to the body to go through withdrawals.
Wow. Wow. So, they're not always kidnapped and
No,
threatened.
no, I would say in the United States that hardly happens. Out of all the years I've done this, and I've been working human trafficking cases for 15, 17 years, and I've seen that maybe happen once or twice. A lot of these individuals that become victims, a lot of them, I call them are compliant victims, where they're either tricked into saying they think they're in love with that person, and then they, flip the strip on them. Sometimes they're blackmail, be it, they're sending pictures over the internet or doing different things, and they turn around and use those pictures to blackmail them. For example, I've got this video of you nude. I'll show it to your church members, I'll show it to your parents, I'll show it to your school, unless you do this for me.
Mhm.
So sometimes, it happens that way as well. And then you have a percentage of these exploiters that are just violent and will use force on these victims to comply to those sexual acts.
Wow. So, and is the social media also, other than the blackmailing, is it a part of that? Like the catfishing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tool that the exploiters will use like anything else. I wouldn't say it's the internet or social media itself.
Hmm.
It's just a tool that people have access to, right?
Okay. So, who are the traffickers and why do they do it?
Traffickers, like anything else, can be anyone. We've had college kids exploiting other um, college kids or high school kids. We've had people in the places of authority, be it coaches, be it foster parents. We've had parents exploit their own kids for financial gain in terms of selling them for sex to other people. So why they do it, a lot of it is just greed. Some people in this world are just evil.
So, does it only take place like in large urban cities?
Nope, takes place everywhere. I mean, you might have your customer base or your demand more in your urban cities or larger cities, but we have rescued victims from even here in Michigan, where we rescued them down in Detroit, but they were from East Tawas or they were from the Ludington area, places where you wouldn't think human trafficking happens, but they do get lured down to bigger areas, like you talked about earlier, with the internet and social media, and different sites that people go on and meet people and they get them to travel, or the exploiter or that pimp will travel and pick them up and bring them someplace, be it to a larger city in the state of Michigan or to a larger city somewhere else in the United States.
Mm, wow. So, how does it affect the cities or the areas where it takes place?
Well, it affects it a lot of different ways. One, you have victims who are being exploited in local hotels or different houses. You have, customers who are going out purchasing these people and using these victims as well. You have it involving the citizens, or the kids or the children who are in the area as well, be it young kids as in 10, 11, or more older
Wow.
kids, be it 17, 16, and things like that. So there's a market for pretty much everything.
Wow. Wow. Are these are there particular cities where this human trafficking is just growing exponentially? Like, opioid, they say some places you'll find, it's just an increase in a certain city in a certain state. So are there certain places around the country where you can just really find it's just going up and up and up for
Yeah,
human trafficking?
I would say you're going to find it in any major or large city, any
Yeah.
place where there is either big sporting events going on, conventions, any place you have a lot of interstate around where people are traveling, truck stops, and all that. One of the issues with human trafficking really is data and knowing how much of it is going on. I know probably it's been probably 10 years now, if not longer. There was an article that went out that talked about how Michigan was ranked number two for human trafficking, which is not
Wow.
true. That
Good.
was a um, stat that was used because we did, back then it was called Operation Cross Country, where all the task forces throughout the United States went out and did undercover stings for a week. Well, here in Michigan, we worked a little bit harder and recovered more victims. So
Mhm.
when the FBI pushed the stats out, Michigan came in number two for recoveries, but that was just because we worked harder and worked longer. But that's no true indication that Michigan is ranked that high. I would say Michigan is not ranked that high. Um, but that's one of the things that we're trying to work on, is getting those true stats and those true
Okay.
numbers coming in.
Okay. Is there anything the community can do to reduce the human trafficking, or is it up to the politicians to try and make laws to prevent it?
I would say it's going to take everyone for it. You need to sort of attack it on both ends. You have for the citizens, if you see something, report it. Um, if you are unsure, still report it. That's up to law enforcement to figure out if it's trafficking going on or not. You can, call the national hotline number to report it. Or if it's something where you feel someone is in immediate danger, then I would say call 911. For other things, yeah, there could be some stiffer laws in certain areas. I will say, starting back, I think the first go around was 2011, the second one was 2015. Michigan has come a long way. The legislators and different things where we have tougher laws now for trafficking. So I will say that Michigan is ahead of the curve in terms of the new laws and enforcing things.
Okay. All right. How often are the traffickers caught and the victims testify against them here in Michigan?
Um, that depends on the situation. So, in terms of them getting caught or arrested, that comes down to resources, what police departments out there working in, what police departments have training to look like past that traffic stop, or to dig deeper into cases because they are at times difficult cases to work. Um, there are victims who will testify, which makes it easier. I will say one of the changes in the Michigan law is that if we can corroborate things, a lot of times we're able to, at least at the first part of the investigation, testify for that victim. almost
Okay.
like domestic violence now.
Right.
How, when it starts off, the officer can sort of be the complainant. So you
Hmm.
can get some of that with the human trafficking cases based off of the relationships that these, you know, pimps or these exploiters are having with the victims.
Okay. Now, the victims, they're not always coming from broken homes and runaways and stuff like that, are they?
Nope, not at all. They will look for whoever they think they can get. I call it get their hands on, but it's more of a mental game. If they're not hooked on drugs, I've had victims from broken homes. I've had victims from good homes, from West Bloomfield, from places an hour plus away outside the city. They're looking for people with low self-esteem, people having issues at home. Of course, they're going to try to be that best friend, right? Especially if you're talking about a minor.
Hmm.
Everything that parent says is bad, and girl, I wouldn't do that to you, or I'll take you in, I'll treat you right. So it's all over the board. It's about how they can find that in. But if that child or that adult is strong, then they're going to move on. They're just casting out a net, trying to see what they can catch.
Okay. All right. Are victims taken from the United States to other countries?
I have not seen that happen during my time. It's with so many victims being getting hooked into the drugs, or that mind game of being threatened or coerced. There's so much demand here in the United States that it's no need to.
Okay. So, in this country, how do people report suspected human trafficking? For if it's locally, we just call 911.
If you think it's a life and death situation, I would say call 911. If it's something
Okay.
you want to report, something doesn't look right, you can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is 1-888-373-7888. And what they do is they gather the information and they will send it out to whatever law enforcement department is in that area, and then they will investigate and dig farther into it.
Okay. All right. For your own family, do you have to, you've told your kids warnings, when they were younger, because you're a grandfather now. What kind of things did you tell your daughters, like, to look out
Well,
for, or were you just, how did you keep your kids from being a part of this? I guess that's a better question.
Or they probably think I was like a dictator at the house because I believe in being a parent. But I told them everything. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told them, what's out here, how people will approach you, always know your surroundings, different things like that. Um, Being a parent means, sometimes snooping on your kids. Look and see what they've got in their room. Look at what they're doing on their cell phones. There's apps out there for parents, depending on the age of your kid, that you can put on your phone and you can see what your kids are doing, see what pictures or images they're seeing, and it will update you, depending on what app you have. So I would say, your job is to be a parent and not be your child's best friend.
Okay. All right. With that, we will take a quick break. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back in 30 minutes to Real Dad Speak.
The holiday season is just around the corner, and that means birthdays, anniversaries, company events, and so much more. Well, we found the perfect place for your next event, meeting, celebration, or whatever it is that you want to plan. And it's right in the shadow of downtown Detroit. Welcome to the Channel One event venue, the perfect place for that special event. It doesn't matter the season. You can enjoy our spacious mood-lit event space inside or enjoy our private courtyard outside. Give us a call and reserve your space. Bookings are going fast. The Channel One event venue, located at 444 Meldrum Street, just off Jefferson, in the shadow of downtown Detroit. Call 313-670-7646. By the way, it's also the perfect place for the concert after party. The Channel One event venue.
Welcome back, everybody. That was a quick 30-minute break. I'm sorry for that. I meant 30 seconds, but it's all good. All right, we're here talking to Detective Lieutenant Ed Price from the Michigan State Police. We're talking about human trafficking. And so, Ed, here in Detroit, we're having an NFL draft. Law enforcement is advised that large events where hundreds of thousands of people are is just right for traffickers. What exactly are they referring to?
So yes, anytime you have a large event, be it a concert, especially sports events, because you're going to have a lot of influx of people in that area, these exploiters or pimps are going to take their sex workers to that area because that's where the money is. So you have a lot of men traveling for sports. They're away from their wives, their families. That's a good opportunity for them to partake in those illegal activities. So, like any other type of business, they're going to go where the money is.
Wow. These traffickers are something else, man. Wow. Okay.
That they are.
All right. So this is going to come down to my final five, and it'll just be five questions because we're talking about human trafficking. So, number one, when high school kids get ready to go on a spring break or on their senior trips out of the country, what advice would you give parents concerning human trafficking?
I would say, of course, know where your child is going, have that conversation with them, not going off alone, not trying to meet people. I would say one of the biggest things they would have to worry about is maybe sexual assault or potentially, depending on what country they're going to, being kidnapped or different things. Um, so I would say that's the biggest thing is knowing where they're at, not going off alone, and being smart.
Me? Okay. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now and see you now.
Okay. All I got was don't go off alone, know where they're going, and then it was a third thing, and you froze.
Yeah, the last third. So I'll just wrap it back up.
Okay.
So I would say knowing where they're going, don't go off alone, being smart, knowing their surroundings. If they are drinking or doing different things, make sure they're not like in any place you go to, not leaving your drink unattended, because there are people out here that will slip something into your drink. I mean, one of the biggest things outside of the trafficking thing is worrying about sexual assaults.
Okay. All right. Okay. Number two, what can parents do to ensure that their children won't become victims of human trafficking?
Like I said earlier, be a parent. Your job is not to be the best friend of your child. It's nothing wrong with spying on your kids and snooping and seeing what they're up to or what they're doing. And, sit down and have those honest conversations with your child. You know, have that relationship where they feel like they can come to you if they need help or something happens. I would say that's the biggest thing is communication and trust.
Okay. All right. Are there parents who are victims of human trafficking?
Yes, there are parents who get hooked up with the wrong person or could become dependent on drugs and get into trafficking that way. So it does happen. And you got to think too, if you think about, I know we've talked heavy about the sex trafficking part, but you have to think about the labor trafficking part too. There are drug dealers that will use women and use other people to transport their drugs around or, drive from one state to another, as well as a potential form of labor trafficking.
Wow. Wow. So, okay. How much will communicating with your child prevent them from becoming victims?
I would say that's huge. A lot of victims that we've recovered did not have that relationship or that bond with their parents, where especially when it comes to the blackmail part of it, where they felt they couldn't go to their parents because they were ashamed or they would be judged. So that's how that started. I would say if you have that relationship where your child feels they can come to you and be honest and tell you what happens. Then you can involve law enforcement. Then law enforcement can go out there and do their job and arrest the bad guy.
Okay. All right. Number five, my final question. If a child comes home and tells their parents that she believes her friend is a victim of human trafficking, what should the parent do?
That parent needs to report it. Um, I would say if they don't go to their local department, reach out to that child's parents and let them report it. If that parent feels like they shouldn't get involved, at least call the hotline number and report it anonymously, so law enforcement can still follow up on that and reach out to that family.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, sir, because I don't know if the kids are about to graduate and go on their senior trips now, or or what they're gonna do, or after they graduate, they're going out of the country. But this has been some very vital information for children as well as their parents. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing with us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Real Dad Speak. We've been talking with First Lieutenant Detective or Detective Lieutenant Ed Price from the Michigan State Police about human trafficking. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned. We'll have a new episode every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.